Hello, my name's Janet. I'm 65 years old. And I never imagined that the most painful humiliation of my life would happen on the day that was supposed to be filled with joy. At my own son's wedding, I walked toward the reception area with a hopeful heart, only to find my seat placed outside, next to the trash cans. My son and my daughter-in-law looked at me with a cruel little smirk and said, "Guess you don't count." I felt something inside me collapse, a soft part of me that had spent years believing that love and sacrifice would be enough. But 5 minutes later, just as I tried to steady my breath, the chandeliers inside went silent. The entire room fell into darkness, and a scream cut through the wedding like a knife. That moment changed everything. It was as if the universe itself had decided to flip the story, exposing truths I had been too afraid to face. And what happened next? Well, it turned my world upside down in ways I never expected. If you want to know how that scream at the wedding became the first crack in a much bigger revelation, one that uncovered betrayal, courage, and a strength I didn't know I had, stay with me. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love reading your messages and learning where you're from. Now let's find out how this story really began. I used to believe weddings were sacred moments untouchable, shimmering pockets of time where love softened every edge and even old wound felt briefly forgiven. I never imagined my son's wedding would become the place where I felt the smallest, the coldest, and the most disposable I had ever felt in my life. I arrived early, clutching the little silver clutch my late mother gave me, the one I saved for important moments. My hands trembled slightly, not from age, but from hope. Hope that maybe today, even if just for a few hours, my son would remember who I was to him before everything changed. Before he met Elaine. Before she decided I was an inconvenience she needed to erase. The venue glowed with golden chandeliers and soft white drapes, like a dream someone else was meant to live in. I stood at the back for a moment, taking in the beauty, searching for my place, expecting a simple reserve for mother of the groom tucked somewhere near the front. But instead, a young usher boy who couldn't have been older than 20 approached me with the nervousness of someone following orders they didn't agree with. "Ma'am?" I was told. "Your seat is outside." "Outside?" I repeated, thinking he meant the terrace, or maybe the back row of the main room. But no. He led me past the velvet curtains, through the side door, into the cool evening air. The hum of the generators, the rattle of metal bins, and the faint smell of discarded food hit me before I saw the chair. A single metal folding chair, placed beside the trash cans. Like someone had dragged it out at the last minute and didn't bother to correct their mistake. "This must be wrong," I whispered. "This can't be right." He swallowed, eyes soft with pity. "I'm really sorry, ma'am," they insisted. "They?" I asked, though I already knew. When I stepped back inside to find my son, he was standing with Elaine, both checking last-minute details. When he spotted me, his expression tightened, guilt flickering across his features before he buried it under a smile that felt practiced. "Mom, you made it. Or why was I seated outside?" My voice cracked, humiliation swelling up my throat. "Next to the trash cans?" Elaine didn't even let him answer. "Well, we had to prioritize important guests," she said, smoothing her dress without looking at me. "We couldn't have everyone up front, but outside?" I repeated. "Really?" She finally met my eyes and smiled, small, sharp, triumphant. "Guess you don't count." My son said nothing. That silence hurt more than the words. I walked back out to my metal chair, each step heavier than the last. I sat down, staring at the closed doors, listening to the muffled music and laughter of people celebrating inside. I felt like a ghost present, but unseen. Loved once, but no longer welcome. I tried to swallow the hurt. I tried to breathe past the humiliation. I tried to remind myself that I raised this boy. that I held him when he was sick, cheered for him at school plays, sat through every heartbreak and triumph. But none of that seemed to matter now. Maybe it never mattered to them the way it mattered to me. 5 minutes later, just as I was considering leaving altogether, the chandeliers inside flickered. The hum of the music stalled. And then, a scream. Sharp. Panicked. Female. It cut through the walls and sliced straight into my chest. Chairs scraped. People gasped. Someone yelled for the lights. I stood up, my heart pounding, instinct overriding humiliation. Whatever was happening inside, I knew that screamed it wasn't joy, or surprise, or excitement. It was fear. I rushed toward the door, my fingers trembling as I pushed it open. The room was half lit, shadows stretching across the walls as guests murmured in confusion. And then the second scream came. This one directed at me. "Janit, get in here! Now!" It was Sarah's voice. My niece. The only one who still treated me like a human being. I didn't hesitate. I stepped into the room, unaware that this moment, the scream, the darkness, the call of my name, was about to unravel everything. It would expose truths buried beneath years of politeness. It would tear down carefully crafted facades. It would force my son and his bride into a harsh, unforgiving light. And it would pull me, shaking but resolute, into the center of a storm I never asked for, but could no longer walk away from. Because sometimes humiliation is just the first crack. And sometimes the universe uses a single scream to shatter everything that was never meant to stand. Hours earlier, before humiliation carved itself into my skin like a fresh bruise, I stood in my small apartment in Ohio and tried to quiet the trembling in my chest. My building was silent that morning, the kind of quiet that carries the weight of old memories. I had pulled my only good dress from the closet, the soft navy one with the little pearl buttons that always made me feel a bit more dignified. I smoothed it carefully on the ironing board, passing the iron slowly, almost reverently, over each wrinkle, telling myself this day would patch the holes time had carved into my family. "Today, Janet," I murmured to my reflection in the window, "your family will be whole again. He'll see you. He'll remember." I pinned my hair up the way my mother used, too tight enough to look proper, loose enough not to feel like armor. My gray strands glimmered under the morning light. I stared at myself for a long moment, searching for confidence in the softness of my expression, in the lines life had etched around my eyes. A small, hopeful smile flickered there, fragile but real. When I stepped outside, Lessa, my neighbor, my accidental confidant, waited by her door with a container of still warm muffins. She knew I wouldn't have time to eat. "Well, look at you," she said, touching my arm gently. "You deserve to be front row, sweetheart." I laughed, the sound thin and a little shaky. "You really think so?" She nodded firmly as though my doubt insulted her. "Absolutely. You're his mother." Her voice softened, and a good one. Those words wrapped around my heart like a warm scarf. And because I have always believed people mean well because I need to believe it, I let myself imagine she was right. That today, maybe, Mock would glance at me with something like pride, or gratitude, or even simple acknowledgement. The drive to the venue felt endless. I kept rehearsing the moment I would see him, the smile he'd give me, the quick hug, the whispered, "I'm glad you're here, Mom." That was all I wanted. Not attention. Not admiration, just inclusion. When I finally arrived, the parking lot glittered with luxury cars, bright ribbons, and long dresses that swayed like silk waves in the breeze. My heart quickened, not with fear, but with anticipation. But the moment I stepped inside, that hope cracked. Mark barely looked up from the group of friends he was laughing with. A quick glance, a stiff smile that didn't reach his eyes, and then he returned to his conversation, as though I were an interruption he had learned to politely tolerate. I approached anyway. "Hi, honey," I said softly, offering a small smile, needing him to meet me halfway. He didn't. Emily, his bride, turned before he could answer. Her eyes scanned me head to toe, slow and assessing, like she was checking the condition of a dress on a clearance rack. She didn't hide the distaste. Not even a little. A moment later, she turned to a staff member and said, with a sweetness so practiced it felt cold, "Put her somewhere appropriate." The words stung, thickening the air in my lungs. Appropriate. As if there were a precise, strategic spot for someone like me. As if my presence needed to be managed. I tried again. My voice small, but steady. "Mark, honey, where's my seat?" He sighed, long and dramatic, loud enough for his friends to hear. "Mom, don't start. You know you didn't help with anything. Just be grateful you're invited." Something inside me wilted. Years of sacrifices, 2 jobs after his father left, late nights sewing patches on his clothes, skipped meals. Birthdays I made special, even when no one made mine special, flashed in front of me like a quiet reel. I swallowed all of it. Swallowed the tears gathering at the corner of my eyes. Swallowed the urge to remind him of everything I had done that he conveniently forgot. "I'm just happy you're happy," I whispered, forcing a smile that tugged painfully at my cheeks. He didn't even hear it. He'd already turned away. A staff member gestured for me to follow, and I did teach step, feeling like a slow erasure of who I used to be in his life. When they led me through the side door, away from the chatter and light and music, the truth settled hard inside me. I wasn't welcome. I wasn't wanted. I wasn't seen. And yet, I sat. Because mothers do that. They stay, even in places that bruise them. I looked around at the empty white chairs lined in neat rows inside the hall, at the chandelier light bouncing off polished floors. I imagined where I should have been sitting, in the 2nd row, maybe, or even the 3rd, somewhere with a view, somewhere warm. But instead, I was outside, with the trash bins, with the metal chair that creaked under me when I shifted. I took a deep breath to steady myself, trying to find some meaning, some lesson in the humiliation. Maybe this was simply one more thing I'd have to swallow. One more moment of loneliness I'd pretend never happened. Just as I resigned myself to being invisible at my own son's wedding, my phone buzzed. A text. I reached into my purse, expecting Lisa checking in on me, or maybe a notification from the weather app. But the moment my eyes read the name on the screen, my hands began to shake. I felt the blood drain from my face. Because that text, those words didn't just interrupt the moment, they detonated it. They were the first spark that would soon set everything on fire. The text arrived like a jolt, so sudden, so sharp, that for a moment I forgot how to breathe. My fingers trembled as I unlocked my phone, expecting perhaps a kind message from Lisa checking on me, or maybe some trivial notification. But what appeared on the screen made my stomach drop and my pulse stutter. It was a photo of Mark and Emily sitting in my old living room, my living room. I knew it instantly. The sunlight coming through, the sheer curtains, the crooked picture frame on the wall I'd always meant to fix. And there, at the center of it, the floral couch I bought with my first overtime paycheck at the library, back when Mark was little and life felt like something I could still mold with my own hands. In the photo, Mark and Emily were holding documents, thick ones. Stacks of paper I had never seen before, their expressions tight, focused, as if they were plotting something quietly, deliberately. The message under the photo read, "You really should know what they did." My breath caught. For a moment, the world blurred around me. The laughter coming from inside the reception hall dimmed. The distant music softened into a distant hum. All I could see was that photo burning itself into my mind. The number was unknown, but everything else was painfully familiar. Every detail, every inch of that living room. That couch, how many nights had I fallen asleep there after double shifts? How many times had Mark climbed into my lap there, pressing his small hand against my cheek when he was scared of thunderstorms? Seeing him there now, in a photo taken behind my back, with documents held like secrets, something inside me tightened. A knot of dread, or recognition, or both. My voice cracked a little as I whispered into the empty air around me, "What is this?" My hands felt clumsy as I typed, each letter a struggle. Who is this? For a moment, there was only silence, long enough for panic to spread through my chest like wildfire. Long enough for me to remember every time I ignored my instincts, every time I allowed myself to be pushed aside because I thought kindness was supposed to be quiet. Then my phone buzzed again. The reply came fast, almost too fast. "Watch the video I just sent to the DJ's email. It's scheduled to play later. Don't let them silence you again. Silence me again." My heart pounded so loudly I felt it in my throat. That phrase curled into me, familiar in a way I didn't want it to be. I thought of all the times my voice had been dismissed, my concerns brushed aside, my existence treated like an inconvenience. I thought of the house, my house, the arguments, the confusion, the strange paperwork Mark insisted I didn't need to worry about, the fear I pushed down so far I thought I had buried it for good. I felt something stir inside me, something old, something protective, the hidden strength I only ever felt when someone crossed a line they had no right to cross. I whispered, almost without meaning to, "If this is about my house, I will not stay quiet." The wind seemed to shift slightly, cool air brushing my cheek as though agreeing with me, nudging me forward. My phone buzzed again, another message, another piece of this puzzle, but I didn't get the chance to read it, because just then, the doors to the main hall swung open so hard they smacked the walls. A staff member rushed out, looking pale, breathless. She spotted me instantly, probably because I was the only guest sitting outside by the trash bins. "Mrs. Miller!" she gasped, pressing one hand to her chest. "We need you inside. Something's wrong with the video." For a moment, I couldn't stand up. My legs felt rooted to the ground, heavy with dread. My mind flickered through every possibility, none of them good. "What video?" I asked, even though I already suspected I knew the answer. "The one your son requested," she said, waving her hand urgently. It's not playing what we expected. Please, you need to come right now." The world around me seemed to narrow to a single point, the sound of my own heartbeat, loud and uneven. Everything else, the clinking glasses, the music, the cheerful chatter faded into the background as if submerged underwater. I rose slowly, feeling my knees wobble beneath me. The staff member urged me to hurry, but I couldn't move any faster. It felt like I was walking into something irreversible, something that had been building quietly behind my back for years. As we reached the doorway, the familiar scent of flowers, perfume, and polished wood washed over me, but none of it softened the tightness in my chest. My hand brushed the frame of the door, steadying myself. Inside, the guests were shifting in their chairs, murmuring confusion. Their heads were turned toward the giant screen at the front of the room, the one Mark had boasted about for weeks. On the screen, frozen on pause, was the first frame of the video. I recognized my living room, my floral couch, Mark and Emily, and that stack of documents. Everything inside me went cold. The staff member looked at me helplessly. "We don't know what's happening. The DJ says someone sent this directly to his email with your name on it." My name. I felt my fingers curl into fists, not out of anger yet, but out of the sudden realization that the truth, whatever it was, had been waiting. Whatever was about to happen, whatever that video held, however deeply it cut, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was not going to be silent this time. Inside the darkened ballroom, the air feels strangely heavy, as if every breath has been replaced with doubt and static. Conversations die one by one until only confused murmurs ripple through the crowd. All eyes turn toward the giant wedding screen at the front of the room, where a frozen video frame glows in the dim light. My signature, my handwriting on a legal document I have no memory of ever signing. The sight knocks the wind from my chest. I lift a hand toward the screen as if touching it could explain it, as if recognition might magically return. But the more I stare, the more certain I am. I've never seen that paper before in my life. The DJ steps toward me, his face pale, his hands trembling as he wipes sweat from his upper lip. He looks like a man about to confess to something terrible. "Mrs. Miller," he whispers, voice cracking, "this video. It started playing on its own. I thought it was part of the couple's slideshow, but it's not. Swear I didn't put this in." He seems genuinely frightened, but his panic barely reaches me. My mind has started to drift, back years flashing like broken film reels, birthdays, holidays, arguments at the kitchen table, long nights alone working overtime to keep the electricity on. My heart strains under the weight of all those memories, trying to decide which one hurts most now that I'm standing here, staring at a document that suggests my own child has stolen something from me. Before I can speak, the video crackles back to life. A younger Mark appears on the screen, sitting on my old sofa, the floral one I bought with my first overtime paycheck. He's thinner, maybe 24, maybe 25, his hair shorter, his face clean-shaven. He looks straight into the camera with a casualness that makes my throat tighten. "Mom doesn't know we used her name to get the house money," he says, as if discussing the weather. "She's too soft to understand." I hear a collective gasp ripple across the room. A few people cover their mouths. A woman in the front row whispers, "Oh my God," the sound is faint, but it cuts through me like a blade. Then Emily appears in the frame beside him, younger too, her hair tied back in a ponytail, her eyes bright with mischief. She laughs, a careless, delighted sound I've heard far too many times over the years. Always after belittling jokes, after subtle digs meant to remind me I wasn't quite enough. "She'll sign anything if we tell her it's for her health care," Emily says, leaning into Mark's shoulder. "Old people are easy." Someone in the back mutters, "That's disgusting." Another guest looks down, visibly ashamed for even being in the same room as them. My knees buckle. They nearly give out from underneath me, but something colder and stronger surges up through my spine, a slow, controlled hardening. It isn't anger. Not yet. It's something deeper than that. It's a recognition, a remembering, a truth that has lived in the shadows for years, finally stepping into the light. My breath steadies. My shoulders pull back. For the first time all day, I feel present. Not invisible, not discarded, not small. Present. The lights flick back on with a sudden, jarring brightness. Mark bursts into a fit of rage, storming toward the DJ booth, arms flailing. "Turn it off! Someone hacked this! Shut it down now!" His voice cracks under the pressure of being exposed, and there is something in his expression, maybe fear, that makes the room shift uncomfortably. Guests lean away from him. Emily grasps his arm, hissing something under her breath, her face rigid with panic. It's the first time I've ever seen her lose control of her smile. The DJ tries to defend himself. "I didn't touch anything. This wasn't me." Mark doesn't want to hear it. He grabs the laptop, slamming it shut, breathing hard like a cornered animal, but the damage has already been done. The room has seen, they've heard, and they cannot unhear it. That's when I notice it, movement near the back of the hall. A subtle shift, like someone trying to go unnoticed while also wanting to be seen. A figure lifts their phone, the screen glowing faintly as they quietly film everything. Mark's meltdown, the exposed video, Emily's pale face, the stunned silence of the witnesses. I narrow my eyes, trying to make sense of the silhouette. The person isn't hiding exactly. They're documenting, purposefully, calmly, almost as if they've been waiting for this moment. The realization sends a shiver down my spine. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't random. Someone wanted this truth to come out today. Of all days, in front of all these people, right here beneath the chandeliers, my son said I didn't count enough to sit under. My heart pounds louder than the wedding music that never resumed. My hands tremble, not with fear, but with an electricity I haven't felt in years. A feeling that whispers, they underestimated the wrong woman. My eyes lock with the person recording at the back of the room, and for a single breath, I feel something I never expected at my own son's wedding. Hope. Not pretty, soft hope. Not naive hope. A raw, fragile, trembling hope, the kind born in the exact moment a buried truth finally claws its way to the surface. And right as Mark shouts at the staff to delete every copy, something inside me clicks into place, sharp and steady. For the first time in a long, long time, I'm not afraid of what comes next. In the far corner of the ballroom, half hidden behind a marble pillar wrapped in white roses, I finally see her. My niece, Sarah. Her phone is raised, the screen casting a faint glow on her face. She isn't filming out of curiosity or gossip. Her eyes aren't hungry the way some guests' eyes are, watching a scandal unfold like entertainment. No, Sarah is steady, rooted, her gaze locked directly onto mine with an expression so fiercely gentle it steals the air from my lungs. Her eyes say everything before her lips do. I'm here. I've got you. For a moment, the chaos around us fades. Mark's shouting, Emily's frantic whispers, the DJ's trembling apologies, the guests' shocked murmurs. All of it blurs into a muffled hum. What remains clear is the memory of the girl who used to sit in my kitchen, legs swinging from the chair too tall for her, telling me secrets she claimed no other adult deserved to hear. "You're the only honest adult I know," she once told me. At an age when honesty is a fragile, trembling thing, easily smudged by the world. Her words echo through me now, resurfacing with painful clarity. Suddenly, I'm pulled back to the afternoon months of a rain tapping against my window. The smell of chamomile tea steeping in the kitchen, when she came to me with red-rimmed eyes, wringing her hands like a child caught between truth and loyalty. "Aunt Janet," she whispered then, voice breaking, "they're using you." I remember the way she looked at me, almost pleading, hoping I would understand, hoping I'd believe her. But I didn't. Or maybe I didn't want to. I had placed my faith in Mark like a battered heirloom, cracked, but still displayed proudly. I told her, "People change, sweetheart." To raise him better than that, even though part of me knew she wasn't asking whether people change. She was telling me that Mark had, and I brushed her off, now standing in the middle of a ballroom that smells of roses, candle smoke, and humiliation. The truth I refuse to see has grown too large to ignore. It's carved across the giant wedding screen. It's trembling in my niece's hands. It's echoing in the shocked whispers drifting through the guests like wind through tall grass. Did they scam her? Are those documents real? That poor woman, imagine doing that to your own mother. The whispers sting, but not because they are cruel. They sting because they are the truth, laid bare in public for the first time. And Sarah, brave, stubborn Sarah, steps out from behind the pillar and moves toward me with quiet determination. When she reaches me, she doesn't hug me, doesn't grab my hands, doesn't drown me in pity. Instead, she stands beside me, close enough that our shoulders nearly touched, and says in a low voice meant only for me, "Aunt Janet, you don't have to be invisible anymore. Invisible." The word hits me with an ache so deep I feel it in my bones. All morning I had been fading, shrinking, dissolving into the background outside by the trash cans, brushed aside with icy politeness, treated like an inconvenience at my own son's wedding. And yet, here in front of this crowd, for the first time in years, someone sees me, really sees me. I swallow hard. My voice, when it comes, is barely a whisper. Did you send that video? Sarah straightens, her breath steadying before she gives a small, solemn nod. Her eyes shine not with shame, not with fear, but with something heavier, something that has been weighing on her for a long time. Guilt, yes, but also righteous determination. The kind that only comes from watching someone you love be hurt again and again until you finally can't stand by anymore. I couldn't let them hurt you anymore, she murmurs. You didn't deserve any of this, and nobody was going to speak up unless I did. For a heartbeat, I don't know what to say. I feel the tremor in my hands, grief, shock, relief, disbelief all tangled together, yet somehow my voice emerges steady. Thank you, I breathe. Thank you for not giving up on me. Sarah's lip quivers just slightly, and she wipes at her cheek as if brushing away a stray eyelash. But before either of us can take another breath, before the moment can settle into something warm and grounding, a new voice cuts through the room like a blade. It's the venue manager, rushing forward with a flushed face and a clipboard clutched to her chest as if the paperwork itself might save her from the mess unraveling around her. Ladies and gentlemen, she calls out, her voice cracking slightly through the microphone. We've just been informed that the police are on their way. There was a complaint filed regarding financial fraud under Mrs. Miller's name, my name. The room erupts, not in screams, but in a kind of horrified stillness, like everyone has collectively forgotten how to inhale. Some guests turn to stare at me. Others look toward Mark and Emily, whose faces have drained of color. My heart thuds, once heavy and loud. The floor seems to tilt beneath my feet. Sarah moves closer, her hand brushing mine in a protective gesture, so subtle most people wouldn't notice. But I feel it. I feel everything, the betrayal, the shock, the cold air around us, the warmth of her loyalty, the shifting landscape of a truth that refuses to stay buried any longer. Aunt Janet, she whispers, her voice shaking, but strong enough to hold me upright. Whatever happens next, you're not alone anymore. And in that moment, even with the police on their way, even with my son shouting in the corner and my world cracking open, something inside me, something tired and bruised, begins to breathe again. I stare at the venue manager as if the air around us has turned to thick glass. Her words echo, hollow and impossible, inside my skull. A complaint under my name. It feels foreign coming from her lips, as though she's talking about another woman altogether, some daring, decisive person capable of making a scene, capable of demanding what is hers, capable of calling the police without trembling afterward. A complaint? I repeat, my voice sounding small even to my own ears. Under my name? I shake my head slowly. I don't call the police. I've never called them for anything. It's true. My entire life has been stitched together with forgiveness, tidy, quiet forgiveness that folded itself into every wound, every slight, every disappointment. That was always my way. Fix what I can, endure the rest, and carry on. I was the woman who apologized for being inconvenienced, who tried to smooth conflict like wrinkled fabric, who believed kindness could soften anything, even cruelty. So, hearing that, I supposedly filed a complaint, that I triggered the arrival of flashing red and blue lights now growing louder in the distance. It feels like hearing I've become someone I never dared to be. Sarah moves closer, gently squeezing my arm, grounding me before my thoughts can spiral away from me. Her eyes are steady, fearful, yes, but steady in a way that reminds me of the fierce loyalty she has always carried quietly behind her sadness. I filed it for you, she says softly. But her voice carries enough firmness that I know she has rehearsed this moment in her mind, months ago. When I found the documents in their email, I used the power of attorney you gave me after your surgery. Her words hit me like a sudden fall jolting, disorienting, and yet painfully clear. I feel my breath catch, not out of betrayal, but out of bewildered tenderness. I remember the day I handed her that document, my hands still shaking from anesthesia. Her face worried and too pale for someone her age. I trusted her because she had always been gentle, always honest, always careful with the hearts of others in a way so few people are, and she used that trust not to take from me, but to protect me. My heart lurches painfully, a mix of guilt and gratitude twisting together. Sarah, I whisper, unable to find the right shape for the feeling swelling in my chest. She steps even closer, lowering her voice to a whisper only I can hear, though the room buzzes wildly around us with panicked voices and frantic movement. You're intolerant to injustice when it's about other people, she murmurs, her eyes shimmering with something raw, something decades older than her 24 years. But when it's about you, you let them walk all over you. I couldn't watch it anymore. Her voice cracks at the end like a small fracture in porcelain, and something deep inside me, something that has been clenched for years, loosens. She's right. I can justify anything when it's me who's hurt, but when it's someone else? When it's a stranger on the street, or a child crying, or a friend mistreated, I become a storm. I become the person I never allow myself to be on my own behalf. I swallow, my throat tight. I didn't know you. My voice breaks. I didn't know you carried that alone. She shakes her head. You weren't alone, she says firmly. You just refused to see who was standing with you. Around us, the chaos intensifies like a gathering storm. Emily's voice slices through the air, sharp, panicked, furious. Told you to delete that video, she screams, her perfectly curled hair trembling as she points a shaking finger at Mark. Mark's face is blotchy, sweat beading on his forehead. You said it was safe. He fires back, his voice cracking with genuine fear, not guilt, not sorrow. Fear of consequences he never imagined would reach him. Guests begin filming openly now, their phones raised like an unspoken jury. Some whisper behind manicured hands. Others watch with morbid fascination, as if this wedding has transformed into a live television drama they somehow have front row seats to. I should feel embarrassed, humiliated again, exposed. But instead, an uncanny calm settles over me, thin, fragile, but there, like the first breath after being held underwater too long. Then, through the noise, through the rising echo of sirens outside, another sound emerges, soft but chilling. The sound of shoes stepping out from behind the bar. I turn, slowly, and see him. Tom, my ex-husband. He stands there holding a folder, an old beige one, worn at the corners, filled with papers that he clutches awkwardly as if carrying something too heavy for one man. His face looks older than I remember, more tired, less guarded, but there's something else too. A look of conflicted resolve, the kind a man wears when he's finally choosing truth over comfort. For a moment, I can't breathe. The folder in his hands does something terrible to my stomach. It is familiar in a way I wish it weren't. My blood runs cold and my fingers go numb because I suddenly know before he walks closer, before he speaks, before he opens it, that whatever is inside that folder is going to change everything. Tom clears his throat, his voice rough and low. Janet, he says, not looking at the guests, not at Mark, not at anyone, but me. You need to see this. My heart slams hard against my ribs. The sirens outside grow louder, clearer now. And the folder in Tom's hands is shaking. Not because of the papers inside, but because he is. Tom hasn't spoken to me in years, not truly spoken. Not in a way that meant anything ever since the night he packed his suitcase while the dinner I cooked sat untouched on the stove. He walked out without looking back, leaving me with a stack of bills. A teenage son desperate for approval, and a heart that kept insisting that people could still be better tomorrow than they were today. That foolish hope had been the thread stitching me together for most of my adult life. And now he stands here, in the middle of my son's wedding reception, illuminated by crystal chandeliers and surrounded by half-shocked, half-hungry faces, looking like a ghost who finally found the doorway back into the living world. His shirt is wrinkled, his tie crooked, and there's a slight whiskey tint to his posture, but his eyes are frighteningly sober. He waves a folder above his head like a flag at a battlefield no one expected to be summoned to. "This is gonna be fun," he slurs. But there is a sharpness beneath the wobble in his voice that makes my stomach turn, since everybody loves a show. People turn toward him instinctively, the way crowds always turn when a new player steps onto a stage. The air tightens. Even the soft hum of whispered gossip quiets, folding back into silence. Tom has always known how to command a room, even when he didn't deserve it. He stops waving the folder and instead clutches it in both hands, almost reverently, as if he finally understands the weight of what he's about to release. He flips it open with a dramatic flourish, like a man who believes he's unveiling the final act of a long-buried play. From inside, he pulls out a stapled packet, a grainy photocopy, worn at the corners, but unmistakable. My breath stops midway in my chest. It's the agreement, the one that led me to lose my little house in Cleveland. The house with the white shutters and the stubborn lilac bush I planted the year Mark was born. The house I believed slipped away from me because of medical debt. Because life had a cruel way of striking hardest when you were already on your knees. Seeing it now, in his hand, makes the world tilt slightly. Tom looks at me, really looks in for a flicker of a moment. I see something like regret float across his expression. But then he turns to the crowd, puffing his chest slightly, riding the attention like he always used to. "Mark and Emily came to me," he announces loudly, and several guests gasp at just the sound of their names. "Offered me a cut if I convinced Janet to sign this healthcare assistance form." He holds the packet higher. She never knew she was giving up the house. A sound leaves me, small, involuntary, not shock, not surprise. Something deeper, something like grief dressed in anger. The kind of ache that rises when you realize someone you loved didn't just make a mistake, they made a choice. My knees tremble for a moment, but not from weakness, from clarity. From the sudden, overwhelming understanding of how long this betrayal had been alive, disguised beneath my hope and excuses. I look at Mark, my son, the boy I carried in my arms when he had night terrors, the boy I sat with during every science fair project, the boy whose scraped knees I kissed, the boy whose future I fought for even when I had nothing left to give. He won't meet my eyes. His jaw clenches. Emily grabs his arm, whispering something urgent, her nails digging into his skin. He shakes her off. The room erupts. Voices rise like waves crashing against each other. Accusations, disbelief, pity, outrage. Someone covers their mouth. Someone else mutters, "How could they?" And another whispers, "That poor woman." But inside me, something unexpected happens. A shift. Not a break. A settling. As if all these years of bending, yielding, forgiving, absorbing hurt like a sponge have finally reached their limit. And instead of collapsing, I feel my spine align. My breath steadies. My voice finds its strength before I even speak. My chest aches, not from pain, but from a deep moral outrage. An ancient kind of truth that rises when someone tries to weaponize love. How does a child look at the person who raised them and decide that love is something to exploit? How do they take kindness and turn it into currency? The hurt is immense, yes. But beneath it, woven through it, something solid forms. The strength I forgot I had. I walk toward Tom, the noise of the room dimming around me as if someone has turned down the volume of the world. I take the packet from his hand, slowly, deliberately feeling the coarse texture of the paper, the weight of the years inside it. My hands don't shake. Not anymore. I turn, facing Mark and Emily. They stare back at me, both pale, both trembling for the first time tonight.
I breathe in.
Deep. Steady. Then I say calmly, my voice clear enough to cut through the chaos, "Let's finish this where it truly belongs." I look at all of them, my family, the strangers, the people who watched me be seated by the trash cans, in court. The room falls silent. Even the music seems to hold its breath. And for the first time in years, I feel something bloom inside me. Something fierce, profound, and long overdue. My dignity returning home. I hadn't walked into a courthouse in years. Not since the divorce hearings where I stood trembling with a folder pressed to my chest and a lawyer I could barely afford. But this morning feels different. The winter air bites at my cheeks as I climb the courthouse steps, fingertips grazing the smooth fabric of the new navy pantsuit Lisa insisted I buy. "It makes you look like the woman you really are," she'd said, brushing a bit of lint from my shoulder, "not the one they tried to turn you into." My hair, gray, soft, almost silver in the morning light, moves freely around my shoulders. I hadn't worn it down in years. I used to think it made me look unkempt. Today, it makes me feel honest. Light. Like someone who has stopped apologizing for existing. The cameras start clicking the moment I appear. I feel the flash before I hear the shutters. A reporter murmurs, "That's her." Another whispers, "The mom who was seated by the trash cans." If it had been said months earlier, I would have shrunk. But instead, I inhale slowly, let the cold air settle in my lungs, and keep walking. Let them look. Let them see the woman who survived it. Inside, the courthouse smells faintly of old paper, winter coats, and polished wood. My heels tap a steady rhythm on the floor, steady, because for the first time in a long time, my body isn't betraying me. My chin is lifted. My hands don't tremble. My heart beats hard, but not out of fear, out of purpose. Mark sits at the defendant's table, his posture stiff. He refuses to look at me, focusing instead on the papers spread in front of him. The son who once cried into my shirt after scraping his knee now can't meet my eyes. Emily sits beside him, back rigid, arms crossed. Her glare slices through the room the moment she notices me. It holds no remorse, only the brittle defensiveness of someone who still thinks she might get away with everything. And then there is Tom. My ex-husband sits slightly apart from them, as if even proximity feels too heavy to bear. His face looks different from the wedding night. Sobriety has scraped away the bravado and left behind something raw, thinner. His eyes flicker up at me, then down again, and for the first time in years, he looks almost human, almost ashamed. I take my seat beside my lawyer, a kind-eyed man paid through the victim's legal fund Sarah found for me. Sarah had spent hours on the phone, guiding me through the application, refusing to let me give up when the paperwork overwhelmed me. "You deserve help," she'd said. "You deserve more than survival." The judge enters, and the room rises. When we sit again, the world seems to narrow to the sound of the judge's voice and the rhythmic shuffling of documents. One by one, my lawyer slides each piece of evidence onto the screen. The fraudulent forms, the forged notations, the so-called healthcare assistance agreement that stole my small house in Cleveland, my signature, crooked, rushed, surrounded by fine print they never let me read. Every lie they told while I stood in my own living room, offering them coffee, trusting the people I loved most. My throat tightens, but I do not look away. Not today. Mark shifts uncomfortably as the judge stops to study the section that proves coercion. Emily rolls her eyes so dramatically it borders on theatrical, but her legs bounce beneath the table, an anxious rhythm she can't control. Tom presses his lips together, eyes glistening just barely, as if each document is a pebble thrown at a window he thought would never crack. My lawyer's voice is steady, almost gentle, as he speaks for me. Something I had forgotten was possible. Someone standing beside me, not above me. Someone saying my pain was real, documented, provable. When he finishes, the courtroom seems to hold its breath. The judge leans back. His voice when he speaks is firm and unmistakably final. Given the evidence of fraud, coercion, and financial exploitation, the property will be restored to the plaintiff. Furthermore, damages are awarded, and criminal proceedings against the defendants will move forward. A sound escapes Mark, something between a gasp and a collapsing breath. He finally raises his eyes to me, and for the first time since he was a little boy apologizing for breaking a vase, I see fear in them. Fear and something else buried beneath eye technician. Recognition that I am not the weak, soft placeholder he thought I would always be. He opens his mouth, voice barely audible. "Mom, But he stops, as if the words burn before they can leave his tongue. Emily's lips part in shock, then fury. She pushes her chair back so abruptly it screeches. Her eyes wild with disbelief. How could her certainty fail? How could her plan crumble? How could I, the woman she mocked, win? Tom doesn't look furious. He looks hollow, like a man who finally sees the line he crossed and realizes there is no path back to the person he once hoped to be. The judge dismisses the court, and people begin to move, gathering coats and murmuring. My lawyer touches my arm gently. "You did it," he says. "You held the line." I stand slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle. The cameras wait outside. The reporters wait. The world seems ready to witness the woman who walked through hell and came out carrying her own truth like a lantern. But before I reach the door, someone speaks behind me. "Janet." It's Tom. I turn, and in his eyes I see something I haven't seen in decades. A sliver of the man he was before bitterness carved hollows into him. "I'm sorry," he says, voice cracking on the last word. "For everything." I don't answer right away. I search his face. The apology doesn't erase the past, and it doesn't undo the damage. But it is real. And sometimes, real is enough not to forgive fully, but to stop carrying someone else's shame. "I hope you get better," I say softly. He nods, swallowing hard. As I step outside, the cold air hits my face, but it feels different now. Not sharp, but clean. The cameras flash again, but they don't scare me. They don't define me. I walk down the steps with my shoulders back, my breath steady, my heart open. I am no longer the woman seated by the trash cans. I am no longer the woman tricked into signing away her home. I am no longer the mother who stayed small so others could feel big. I am the woman who stood up. The woman who said no more. The woman who fought and won. And as the winter sun warms the crown of my head, I realize something with quiet certainty. This is the beginning of my life, not the aftermath of theirs. Mark stands a few feet away from me in the courthouse hallway, still blinking as if trying to wake from a dream he didn't expect to end this way. His shoulders slump, and his hands twitch slightly, like a boy caught stealing, but not yet sure how to say he's sorry. He looks smaller than I ever remembered him, smaller even than the wiry teenager who used to sit on the edge of his bed, insisting he didn't need my help with homework, but sighing with relief every time I stayed anyway. "Mom, I'm sorry," he mutters. The words fall from his mouth without the pride or arrogance he carried for years. There's no entitlement in his tone now, no expectation that I'll soothe him, wipe away the consequences, or shrink so he can feel larger. His apology is raw, unsure, almost trembling. For years, I would have given anything to hear those words. I would have folded into myself, rushed forward, Tried to convince him that everything was okay, that I didn't blame him, that I understood. That instinct flickers for a second, like an old reflex, the part of me trained to immediately comfort, immediately fix. But I don't move. I simply nod, holding his gaze steadily. I hope you learn what being a decent human really means. There's no malice in my voice, no anger, just truth. And truth, I've learned, can feel like the sharpest blade, especially when spoken softly. He looks stunned, as if he expected the old version of me to return, the version who would have offered forgiveness as quickly as water fills a crack. But that woman existed in a life shaped by fear and hope in equal measure. This new life, the one I carved out piece by piece, has no room for self-erasure. I turn away from him gently, but firmly. My revenge is not loud. It is not dramatic. It isn't destruction. It's distance. It's boundaries. It's reclaiming the voice they tried to quiet. It's telling my story on my own terms, without waiting for permission, without asking whether it will inconvenience someone who once insisted they loved me. In the weeks that follow, my life takes on a quiet, unexpected rhythm. My new condo is small but warm, the kind of place where the light falls softly on the kitchen counter in the late afternoon, turning everything gold. The sofa Lisa helped me pick is a gentle gray, soft against my back. Sometimes, when I sit with a cup of chamomile tea, I realize how long it has been since I felt safety that wasn't dependent on someone else's mood. Sarah comes over one Saturday with a laptop under her arm and a determined spark in her eyes. "I have an idea," she says, pushing aside the stack of folded blankets on the couch so she can sit. "And before you say no, hear me out." I laugh in easy, surprised sound that still feels new. "What now?" "You're going to start an online channel," she says matter-of-factly. My eyebrows lift. "A what?" "A channel. Videos. Lives. Advice." She gestures animatedly. "Older parents need to hear what happened to you. People need to understand financial manipulation, how subtle it starts, how devastating it becomes. You could help people. You could warn them." I shake my head at first. The idea is so foreign I can barely hold it. "Sarah, I don't even know how to set up a recording." "I do." She pats my hand. "And you know how to speak from the heart." I hesitate, feeling both flattered and intimidated. Then I think of the women I met in support groups, hunched under invisible weights, embarrassed to talk about money stolen from them, afraid to mention betrayals within their own families. I think of the tears that slid silently down their cheeks, of all the ways society makes older women feel foolish for trusting people they love. Maybe my voice could be a lantern for someone else fumbling in that darkness. And so, we create it. We call the channel Not Your Doormat. The name makes us burst into laughter the first time we say it aloud. But the laughter is cathartic, like tearing down an old wall with your bare hands and discovering sunlight behind it. My first episode is simple, honest. The camera light feels too bright, and my fingers shake a bit as I hold my notes. But Sarah squeezes my shoulder once before clicking record. "Put me by the trash cans. Here's what they didn't expect." My voice quivers at moments, but it grows steadier as the minutes pass. I talk about humiliation, manipulation, grief, how betrayal doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers in familiar voices and wears a smile you once trusted. Let's talk about the moment I realized I was worth fighting for. After the video goes live, I don't look at the comments for hours. I'm afraid no one will watch, or worse, that people will mock me again, twist my story into something small. But when I finally open the page, my breath catches. This happened to me too. My daughter stole from me. My son manipulated me into signing papers I didn't understand. I thought I was alone. I feel seen. Comment after comment blooms across the screen like small candles in a dark room. A warmth grows inside me, not pride, not exactly, but something deeper. Purpose. Solidarity. The fierce part of me that survived begins to glow softly, like embers catching oxygen. Every day, more women join the community. Widows, grandmothers, retirees, women who raised families and then were discarded like furniture once their usefulness ended. Women who blamed themselves for trusting the wrong person. Women who never felt allowed to be angry until they saw someone else stand tall. The channel does not erase the pain. It does not undo what was taken. But it transforms the hurt into something that does not hollow me. It fills me. One quiet evening, as I'm preparing for a live stream about preventing elder financial abuse, I sit at my little desk, adjusting the lamp so the light is warm rather than harsh. My notes are spread out in front of me. The smell of lavender drifts from a candle Sarah gifted me. Outside, the city hums softly, but inside, it is peaceful. Just as I'm about to click go live, a notification pops up in the chat window. A new viewer has joined. Username, regretfulson85. The name hits me in a place I didn't expect, deep, low, somewhere between the heart and the stomach. I stare at it for a long moment, unsure whether to breathe. For a second, I wonder if it could be him, or perhaps just someone else. Another child who realizes too late the harm they caused. Either possibility carries its own ache. I take a slow breath, steadying myself. My reflection in the camera looks calm, grounded. A woman who has carved a new life not from bitterness, but from truth. When I finally click go live, I look into the lens and speak with a steady voice. Welcome, I say softly. Tonight, we talk about healing. And somewhere in the scrolling chat, the username remains, not disappearing, not leaving, just watching. The soft ring light in my tiny home studio casts a warm glow over the room, softening the lines of my face and giving the space a gentle, almost serene intimacy. I'm wearing a simple but elegant dress one I haven't had the courage to wear in years, and a touch of lipstick that Lisa insisted I try. When I caught my reflection earlier, I barely recognized the woman looking back at me. Not because I seemed younger or different, but because I finally looked whole, present, alive in a way I had forgotten I could be. The chat is already active when the timer counts down, small messages blinking across the screen as viewers from all over trickle in. Many of them call me Miss Janet, some call me Miss J, a few just type, "I'm here," the kind of words that feel more like a hand placed gently over mine than simple text on a screen. When I click go live, I take a slow breath that settles deep into my chest. The familiar nervous flutter doesn't scare me anymore. It reminds me that I'm human, that I care, that this matters. Good evening, everyone. I begin, my voice low and soft, but steady. Thank you for being here with me tonight. Faces from the chat don't appear on camera, but somehow I feel them, women and men sitting in living rooms, at kitchen tables, in dark bedrooms where loneliness curls in the corners. People who have been betrayed, dismissed, pushed aside, or made to feel invisible. People who carry wounds they hide under sweaters and polite smiles. Tonight, I want them to feel seen. Having a good heart, I say, leaning slightly toward the camera as if confiding a secret, is not a weakness. It is not something to apologize for, but letting people crush it without consequences, that is. My voice doesn't shake. Not tonight, not anymore. I speak about boundaries, about self-respect, about the quiet power of saying enough even when your voice trembles. I talk about the years I spent shrinking myself to keep peace that never truly existed. I talk about how love without respect becomes a cage. And I talk about the day the cage finally cracked. The chat scrolls quickly, messages full of tears, support, gratitude. Some share their own stories. Others simply type, "Thank you." Then a new message appears, from Regretful Son 85. The name glows on the screen with a soft insistence, as if waiting for me to acknowledge it. How do you forgive a son who betrayed you? My breath catches, not in pain, but in the recognition of something inevitable. Something I've sensed since the first time that username appeared. I know who it is. Of course I do. A mother's heart carries certain signatures forever, but my answer cannot be only for him. It must be for everyone who sits tonight with a wound shaped like someone they loved. You forgive, I say gently, carefully, when you're ready. Not to erase what happened, not to pretend it didn't hurt, but to free yourself from the weight of carrying their choices. I let the silence settle a moment before continuing. But forgiveness does not mean letting someone back into your life without boundaries. It does not mean giving them the power to hurt you again. Forgiveness can coexist with distance, and it can coexist with no. The chat erupts, some with crying emojis, others with quiet statements like, "I needed this," or "My son hasn't spoken to me in years." I don't call out the username again. I don't want to shame him. And I don't want him to think the entire world is watching him through the keyhole of his regret. I want him to hear the truth, the same way every hurting person hears it, gently, without pressure, without judgment, without expectation. As the live stream winds down, I take a long breath and let my gaze soften. I'm not reading notes anymore. I'm not rehearsing words. I'm speaking from something deeper, something that feels like the truest part of me. Before we end tonight, I say, looking straight into the camera as if meeting each viewer's eyes one by one, I want to tell you something I wish someone had told me sooner. The room feels still. Even the traffic noise outside fades. You still count, I whisper, no matter where they try to seat you. Not at the edge of the table, not near the door, not by the trash cans. You still count. The chat explodes, hearts, words of affirmation, sobbing messages, simple thank yous. And standing in the middle of that glowing screen, I feel something inside me lift, like a bird loosening its wings after being caged for far too long. When I finally end the stream and close my laptop, the room falls into a comfortable quiet. The lamp hums softly. My chest feels warm, not heavy. I'm tired, but it's the kind of tired that comes after doing something meaningful, something that leaves your soul a little cleaner. A moment later, my phone buzzes. I pick it up expecting another notification from the channel, maybe a message from Sarah or Lisa, but the name on the screen makes my breath pause. Mark. My thumb hovers before. I finally tap the message open. "Mom, I want to start over. If you'll let me, I'm trying. I really am." I sit there for a long moment, the phone warm in my hand. I wait for the thud of old pain, the familiar ache of longing for reconciliation at any cost. But it doesn't come. Instead, I feel something quiet and new blooming inside me, hope, but not dependence, peace, but not forgetting, strength, but not defiance. For the first time in a long, long time, I smile. Not because I need him, but because I finally have myself. And if you followed my story, if tonight's words touched something inside you, I'd love for you to stay with me on this journey. Subscribe to the channel, join our community, and let's keep healing together.